series live streams, and today I'm super grateful to have one of my dear friends and mentors, Paul Dunn, on the line, calling in from the forest somewhere in Singapore. How are you today, Paul?
You like the forest, right?
Yeah.
People think they can't be Singapore, right? Singapore is a sort of concrete jungle, but it's not. That's where
That's your backyard.
Yeah. Well, it is actually. That's the view from my home office window. That is the view right there, and I go running around that every day and stuff. So yeah, it is really Singapore, I promise.
Yeah.
Anyway, great to be with you. Really great.
Yeah, so grateful you're here, and thank you for everyone who's watching this live or on the replay. My team are monitoring the comments, so anyway, through this interview with Paul, would love you to ask any questions you've got for him or myself, so we can get them answered. Anything related to business or related to anything we discussed today. No idea where these go, but totally open to and excited for where they're going to go. And one thing I'm going to ask as well is for you guys to start a watch party, hit like, and to share this around. We've already had some phenomenal feedback of the impact that these series have had on people so far and business owners, and how they've taken the smallest things out that have made a huge impact and change to the way they've seen their business and done their business. So if not for yourself, maybe for those that are in your social networks and circles, like start a watch party so you can kind of share the message with them as well. So Paul, like, you've been around the block a little bit. You've been in quite a bit lately. I've heard you've been running 5Ks a day.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't mean I've been around that block. You meant I've been around the business block of it. It's so true.
Well, both, let's be honest. But you've been around the business block for a while, and you've seen a lot, right, in your time, no doubt, the good, the bad, and possibly the ugly. What's been your interpretation of what we've experienced the last 6 months here?
Oh, I mean, this is like the understatement of the decade, isn't it? Say again? This is no. This is the understatement of the decade, right? I mean, there's never been a time like this. I mean, it's like amazing how everything is accelerated. But what I think is really interesting in that acceleration is it's kind of like we knew it was coming, right? We couldn't articulate what it was, but we knew there had to be something, and it was this incredible thing. And I say incredible, not to take anything away from, the really serious stuff that's been going on with people's lives and their jobs and all that kind of stuff. But from a business point of view, it has been the most amazing time to really question the models that you have. Michael Gerber, way back when, said, the idea is to work on the business as opposed to in it. Well, guess what? We've now had so much time that we just didn't expect to work on. The other thing that I think is so important, Barry, for a long time, I've said that there are really two words that are critically important, and they've always been critically important. Those two words are connection and belonging, right? Connection and belonging. And you could not have existed on this planet in this last 3 or 4 months without understanding that we are all connected. You really are, right? It's really the way it is. And the other thing that is so important is to understand that in business, you've got to create something that people want to belong to. That's a basic human need. And so when you build connection and belonging together and start to put that in the business just thrives in a way that perhaps it never had. Right? So I think it's a very exciting time.
Yeah. How does that, it's so beautifully put, that sense of belonging. We actually spoke about that a couple of episodes ago. I'm not sure which one it was now, but that's a fundamental core need we have as human beings, to belong. And it's amazing what we do and not do to belong to something, whether that's resourceful and healthy, or maybe not so resourceful, not so healthy, depending on our upbringing and so forth. We talk about business though, connection and belonging. How does that relate to values? How does that relate to the values that we have as a company, or the values that we have that we kind of pre-screen and vet clients through?
Well, right now, what's so interesting is, you remember we talked about acceleration, right? And I don't know about you, but you remember that this shows my age, right? You remember that old Cyndi Lauper song, right? True Colors, right? And you're not about to sing it. Please don't. But you remember True Colors, and people that I talk with is, we've seen a lot of True Colors, coming out. And we've seen some very interesting things in relation to leadership. And I think this has really shown.
I love where this is going.
Yeah, really shown a lot of things, and I've seen 3 styles which are kind of interesting. First style, they all begin with P, which is really easy. That's not because my first name is Paul. It just happens. So the first one was, and you listening to us probably went through it. Panic. Like, oh God, what are we going to do, right? And what happens is that just freezes you. And if you stay in that mode, you're right there. The other one begins with P, is what I call passive, where people kind of go, go with the flow kind of thing. Exactly, yeah. So it's like a drift, right? And then there's the other one, which begins with P. It's called purpose-driven leadership. And one of the things that, and that's not just because I got that from a book or whatever. That is what you've actually seen, right? So you've seen people, and here's the thing, right? So and it's kind of this upward curve, right? And what I've seen is that irrespective of what's happening, what people get to this level because it's leaders who are consistently at their best. And so then you ask yourself the question, okay, so what is it that makes leaders consistently at their best? And I think there's a couple of things. Can I just tell you what they are? I think they might be useful.
Come on, let's go.
For all the people watching. Yeah, let's go. And by the way, since this is about connection and about belonging, show that you do that by putting some stuff up on the chat. We'd love to hear from you as well. So here are, and this might be contentious. You might go, oh, that's not the way I see it, which is fine, right? So put that up there as well. So question: how do leaders stay at their best? Get and stay at their best. Now, Barry, let me just say it like it is, right? So here's what I think. Okay. I think leaders are at the best because they understand something which is, I think, fundamental. You talked about belonging being fundamental, but how about this one? We are all at our very best when we're giving. Now, that I don't mean by that giving money. I don't mean giving money. I don't mean any of that. Just we are all at our best when we're giving, right? So, we help the old lady across the road, or in some cases they help me across the road, right? Or we pick up something off the floor, or for example, here right outside my window there is a bus stop. And how cool are the bus drivers? They're driving. How cool are the taxi drivers? They're doing all of this. How cool are the food delivery people? So cool, the real heroes, right? So anyway, when I go down to get a bus on the days that I'm allowed to do that, or get a cab, it just depends. But anyway, so I get on the bus, and the first thing I do, let me talk about giving just for a moment. First thing I do, I get on the bus and I say to the bus driver, "Thank you for stopping." And that's crazy, right? It's so crazy to say to a bus driver that, thank you for stopping. And they look at you and go, "Oh, but that's my job." Now, what's so interesting about that is I bet you that person goes home and says, "You know what, we got to bus stop 57 tonight. And there was this real weird guy. And he said, 'Thank you for stopping.'" And so all of a sudden you start to see the ripples and, all of that sort of thing. But here's the thing, right? So we think that kind of made that person's day. BS. It made my day. Right? It made my day. So it's not, when we're giving, it's actually we're getting it and we're not doing it to get it back. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, if you understand that we're at our best with our giving, when we're giving, then that's how you're going to build organizations. You're going to take first care of your team, right? Because that's where it is. That gets back to the values that you were talking about before. And then the other thing that I think is so important is that in this time, someone said to me the other day, "Please don't use the word unprecedented because I'll scream." Someone else said to me, "Please don't use the word pivot because I'll scream." But I am about to use the word pivot, but not unprecedented, having just used it. But anyway, by the way, do you know what the best phrase is? The most common phrase these days is "you're on mute." That's the most common phrase. Anyway, so here's the thing. So when you do those things, what I have found is that organizations don't just pivot, they transform. That's what happens. And you were sharing with me before that you've seen so many examples of that, of organizations that have seriously transformed. And then you say, what else? What else are these guys doing? And I think that what they've got is they've got something bigger than themselves. Some people call it a North Star. Simon Sinek calls it why, right? But something that is bigger than yourself that you get up every morning to do, you know? And when you get those things and you put them all together, it becomes just an amazing, amazing time to be alive. I can't believe it, you know, and you get these amazing things happening, like for example, the hotel in Sweden. You've probably heard about the hotel in Sweden where they relaxed the dining rules, and they had this brilliant dining area. But what happened was, because they had to have, I don't like the term social distancing, I think we should call it physical distancing. But anyway, so they put the physical distancing into operation and they couldn't fill the restaurant. So some bright spark says, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we take the beds out of every hotel room, and why don't we create it as 496 private dining suites? That's exactly what they did. I mean, it's like, oh my God, no one would ever have thought of that, right? Before. Do you get where I'm going, right? So there are...
I'm like, my mind's bubbling with so many things. We've got a bunch of questions coming through as well. Please get the questions coming through in a second. Before we do, you've raised a really interesting point that I want to touch on, which is chapter 2 of my new book. And that is vision, why, purpose. Yeah. I think a mistake that a lot of people have is they build a business and they don't start with end in mind. They don't start with the North Star. They start with the need to fulfill some sort of financial restriction or burden. They've got a problem to fix, very short-term focused, and therefore the business doesn't have the stamina, it doesn't have the energy to really grow into something great. And when we talk about, you know, building a purpose-driven business that can run without you, I think should be the ultimate goal of every business owner, because until then, you've got a job. But that's why chapter 2, we start, look at that, magic. Look, ready?
Well, what happened? What happened? Oh my goodness, there it was. No, you were going back in green screen. Right? Yeah, look at that. Boom.
Hang on, let me go that. Let me just get this off the shelf. There we go.
How brilliant.
So chapter 2 is all about vision, because you need that North Star. That North Star is going to be the thing that carries you through the challenges, the struggles. Like you asked me before, how do we fare so well during everything that's happened? And it was because of that, because we never lost sight of our vision. Our vision is not hitting some sales numbers today or this week or this month. Our vision is something far grander, that something like COVID or a financial crisis is honestly only a bump in the road. It's a bump in the road because the journey is so long. Yeah, when we're so caught up on hitting those smaller targets, we could be so completely thrown by the situation that happened. Now, back to the hotel story. I was on an interview with Mike Michalowicz from author of Profit.
Yeah. How cool.
And we were chatting about a process called One Step Back. And this is an amazing process used for innovation, which is exactly what these guys have done. They've gone, okay, like what is the end goal of what we deliver here? Well, it's accommodation, or it's an experience, or it's a meal, or whatever. It's like, what's one step back from that? And we can start to reverse engineer what we currently offer and go from having a company that has one product or one service to be able to offer multiple into multiple industries.
Yeah, I mean, how do you explain, one of our clients in Melbourne, they had 3 coffee shops, right? Decimated. Okay. You would think so. They actually did, as a coffee shop, right, selling paninis, they actually grew during the pandemic. I mean, it's like bizarre. How'd they do that? Answer: belonging. And they did really amazing. Like everybody did delivery, right? That's what you did. But what they did said, well, why don't you be our delivery guy? Why don't you go to your condo or in your condo and say, I'm going down to Co & Co today. I'm going to get some coffee. I'm going to get some paninis. Can I get some for you? Just amazing. Just by that simple question, they multiplied the whole thing, and they actually made more money than they've ever done before, just by that simple question.
There's so much. We're going to jump the questions. We're going to just pin that conversation there. We're going to jump some questions and come straight back, because there's a few things that's reminding me of. So Ted from Adelaide, this is my constant concern. Connection is good because of the current crisis, but once it's all well, we're back to the old consumption trends. How to reverse it? Should I even be worried?
Oh, this is so, I mean, there are so many people. Did you say Therese or
Ted, Ted from Adelaide.
Ted, I beg your pardon, Ted. Ted, first of all, thank you for the question. And here's the point. Remember I talked before about leaders and what leaders do. The key to that question is to understand that we're the leaders, right? That's the key to that, right? So it only changes because we change, right? It doesn't change because, who was it said this? There's never somebody else, right? There's never somebody else, right? There's only you, right? And you can be that shining example, which, I mean, here we are talking about shining examples, right? Yeah. Why not choose to be it in your little niche or whatever? And I mean, I share with you, Ted, I share with you that same thought, but I tell you what, I think the momentum that we're now in, I talk about this path to purpose, and I think that is now a vertical thing. And Barry, with the chat, it's the whole flipping deal, right? Simon, as in Simon Sinek, Simon's a friend, right? And I love this thing. For those of you who want to get onto this thing, here's what you've got to understand. Remember before, I said that what you need to figure out is you've got to have a North Star that is bigger than you, right? It's bigger than you, right? So if you have a purpose that says, well, we're going to be the best XYZ in ABC city, no. So, and so the way to think about it is this. Just remember this, as you're finding your purpose, just remember this. All purpose is human. It has to have something that, makes a difference in the community or wherever it is. And once you get that, it becomes a magnet, an absolute magnet for you. So I'm glad to see it was chapter 2, by the way, for that magical disappearing book that you had.
Yeah. Do I just hang on?
But great question, Ted, and thank you for the question. Here it comes again. Go. Look at
that. Fantastic question. And it reminds me of a quote from Helen Keller I spoke about yesterday, actually, is that alone we can do so little and together we can do so much. But the journey from 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And it's very easy for us to sit back and to be like, oh, well, there's no point in me changing until we change. But someone has to be the change, like be the change you wish to see in the world, and understand that we all have the ability to lead, as you mentioned too, Paul. I've got a question from Keith from Sydney. Many modern day prophets try to predict what the next economic trends will be: mobile banking, crypto, e-commerce. What's the most legitimate trend you could see ahead?
Well, those two things, I think: connecting and belonging. It's as simple as that. How can I put it? I can't tell you physically what it looks like, but I can tell you it will have connecting and belonging at its core, right? That's what I can tell you, right? Instead of companies, let me put it to you this way. Instead of companies trying to sell things, companies will be created and are being created as we speak that don't give people something to buy. They give people something to buy into. Okay, that's that belonging piece, and we are going to see more and more and more of that. We really are.
We already are. Like, and look at
we all, yeah.
Like
of course
the COVID times has allowed a lot of things. It's allowed a lot of companies to get to the 21st century around technology, right? Around a lot of companies to now allow and actually promote work from home environments, which is creating greater experiences for families to have their parents at home and not have to commute hours on end to work. But also, like you said too, like people really got that understanding of the importance of connecting and belonging and physical contact, having it stripped away. I think this is the great thing about things like that, is when something's taken away from it, it creates contrast.
Exactly. And nature abhors a vacuum, right? It will fill the vacuum, right? So yeah, that's true. That's true.
But one thing I want to add from before, Paul, is that I see a lot of people get so stuck in their own heads about their own shit. We talk, let's look at entrepreneurs for a second. It's like, worthiness, I'm not good enough, belonging, trying to fit in where they don't belong, comparing their background footage to someone's, their behind the scenes to someone else's, highlight reel. The whole, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, imposter syndrome, all this sort of stuff. It's very hard to get stuck in your own head when you're focusing on serving others.
Oh, exactly. You know what? No, let me give you something that I thought of the other day. You know what? When people see if this makes sense, right? You might want to comment on the chat whether this makes sense. So like a yes or a no, right?
And if you're loving this, hit the like button and start a watch party. Please, let's get it out there.
So here's the thing. So suppose I turn up to a head shrinker, and the head shrinker says, "What's the problem?" And I say, "Well, I'm lost. I really don't know where things are coming from." And typically, and I don't want to knock the fact that they would do this. I really don't. But I thought about it the other day, and I thought, I am going to. Well, I'm not knocking it because I'm sure that has, I'm sure lots of people find solutions through that. So typically what the hedge funds like, well, we need to go inside, right? We need to look inside at you. What if we didn't do that? What if instead of looking inwards, we looked outward, right? We looked outward, and automatically when we look outward, we're seeing things which impact our lives and where we can actually make impacts, in the community or wherever else it is. And all of a sudden, because you're not focused on you get over that stuff and you get focused on others and you find, whoa, this is really cool. So, I mean, that's my sort of simple philosophy around that, but hopefully it makes sense. So yes or no in the chat, go.
Yeah. I don't know about you, Paul, but I feel that there seems to be like so much more inspiration and energy and spirit to draw onto when my focus is on a purpose or a cause or something greater than me, like my team, my clients, my other businesses. It's like there is an unlimited amount of energy inside. And the quickest way for me to feel down and out is to think too long about myself and what I haven't got or where I'm not, and start to compare myself with where I perceive I should be based on all the work I've put in, or the money that I've spent, or how hard I've been grinding. Like it's all BS.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. Yes, it is. It very is. So, yeah. So we've got to read chapter 2 of the book. That's very obvious, and
Absolutely.
hopefully take some notes from what's going on here. This is great, Barry. Thank you for having me here, by the way.
So grateful. I've got a question from Tim from Perth. And if you guys are loving this right now, please just hit the like button, let us know. And also too, post your comments below. I can see there's a bunch of people jumping on, which is amazing. Tim from Perth, Paul, it's a classic guy who's helped many for so long. Absolutely. Does he even think about online presence and ratings at all? Paul, do you think much about your online presence and the ratings at all?
Well, you mean the number of likes and stuff like that?
Yeah.
No. Why would I think about that?
Yeah, because you're focused on your North Star, your purpose, your connection.
Well, yeah, but I would. Oh, you mean do I focus on the number of people that I'm connected to, or what they think about it, or what? Just I certainly don't.
Do you care much about your online presence and your ratings?
No, I don't. Why would I do that? I mean, seriously, why would I do that? I don't understand why you would do that.
Yeah, great. Keep the questions coming. Christy said, love the analogy of looking outwards, Paul.
Oh, good. Thank you, Christy.
Yeah. The likes that we ask for, I guess, to be clear, it's not for some egotistical thing that I can go to sleep and be like, oh, hey, I've got like 10 likes or 100 likes on my post. It's not about that. It's about like, I think for me, we're all the time programming life and the universe to deliver us that we ask for, right? Yes. And so that being said, if you're putting your hand up saying, yes, this is resonating with me, yes, I'm liking this, you're actually putting a call out consciously and unconsciously to bring you more of that stuff into your life.
Exactly so.
I turned up to so many training rooms and I sat passively when the trainers or facilitators were like, oh, is this resonating? You're getting something. And I would never verbalize it. And I noticed my growth was a lot slower because I was passively sitting in. Now inside I'm nodding, but there was no internal to external. And the moment I started to voice that, the moment I started to put things out there, I actually started to attract a lot more of that serves me, that I was looking for.
Oh, I had this classic experience of that. Can I tell you the classic experience?
Yeah, please do.
One of the magical things about Zoom, right, is they have breakout rooms, right, which I call breakthrough rooms, by the way. And so here's what I do, right? So if we were doing it as a meeting, so I would put them into these breakthrough rooms, and I would put them just in 3, right? And then I would ask them to, in those breakthrough rooms, to just come up with their example of, and the question I would put is, what's been the best example you've seen of human behavior at its best, during this pandemic? And share that, and you've got a minute each to share it, right? So they would share for the minute each. And, if you popped around the rooms, you'd see people crying and the share and all of that sort of stuff. Then they would come out of it, right? This is very interesting. Then they would come out of it, and I would thank them obviously for doing that. And then I would say, just put up on the chat, what, and only one word. What is the one word that describes how you were feeling in there as a result of hearing those stories? I can tell you there are two words that come up, Barry. The two words are connected, inspired. Those are the two words. Now, most recently, there's been another one, which is authentic, right? So connected, inspired. But then here's the magic, right? Here's the magic. What I then do is I said to people, okay, you are going to hear the eighth wonder of the world, which is me being silent for 30 seconds. Here's what I want you to do. I would say, I want you to go back to the chat. Just go back to the chat where we started those comments about the one word. Look at that. There was I give them the time on it. And I say, here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to put to add to what you said just a minute ago. So what I would say is, okay, I am going to stop talking, and I am going to slowly scroll back through all of those comments, and I am going to take in every single word that people wrote. So everybody does that, right, for 30 seconds. So what are they doing? Connected, inspired. Just as you were saying, put your hand up, right? Have a guess what happens in the meeting. It's amazing. It's amazing. Just because we're able to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing.
No, it's good.
Question from Keith. Paul, could you share what B1G1's? First, I'd love you to share a little bit about B1G1. We put a big bio on the live shares anyway.
Oh, okay, good.
My team, Rafi, will put a link in there if you guys want to check it out. B1G1's an amazing initiative. If you want to share a little bit about B1G1, and his question is, what's the big plans for the coming quarters and year for B1G1?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so first of all, let me give you the whole thing on B1G1. And B1G1 springs from this very simple idea where we can all imagine, just for a minute, what would it be like if every time business was done, something great happened in our world? Just imagine that, if every time you sent an email, a kid could get education. Just imagine every time you bought a cup of coffee, a kid got access to water. Just imagine when someone buys Barry's book, and I'm sure this will happen, some trees get planted, right? Just imagine all of those things. And that's what B1G1 does. But Barry, the other day, something happened that was just expresses it beautifully. Can I tell you the story? Absolutely. Here's this lady. She's at a seminar in Sydney. This is just, I say the other day, pre-COVID, right? Almost the day before COVID. And it was a 2-day event, and I was there. And did I say Sydney? Melbourne. And no, it was Sydney. That's right. It was Sydney. Anyway, she's in the room, and she decides that she wants to join B1G1, right? And so she joins, and then the next day, everybody comes back in the room, and I'm there as well. And so the host of the room says, okay, everybody, they're all sitting at their circular tables. Let's all talk about what we did last night and what was really great, about yesterday and everything else. And so everybody starts to share, and then he says, okay, pick someone at your table who shared something really interesting. So at this particular table, they picked this lady. Her name is Sylvia, who joined B1G1 the next day. So everyone's pointing at Sylvia. So Sylvia gets up, somewhat embarrassed, and says, oh, I had a great experience last night and with B1G1. So I said, well, what happened? She said, well, I went home and I told my husband and my family that we joined B1G1, and now we were able to put this whole thing into practice. And they were, oh, that's really good. And then we finished dinner, and I said to my 10-year-old son, David, okay, David, time to wash the dishes. And David goes, oh, God, I'm going to watch it, just like a 10-year-old might do. And she said, well, let's have a look at this. And so she got out her B1G1 app, and she said, you know what? We can put something in here. How about we link you doing the dishes to something great? Have a look at some of these great things here. And one of the great things was, of course, for 1 cent, you can give people access to water. So David goes, oh, really? And Mum says, yeah, and we'll actually, we can do 10, so it's 10 cents. We'll do that, and so on. So David goes, and anyway, I got a call from Sylvia last week actually, and she said, guess what? Dishes have got washed every night. So kids really get it, and exactly, belonging. The connection, right? The whole thing, right? So B1G1 does that. And as to what are the plans? Well, some really interesting plans actually. But the biggest one is to well, it's interesting. It's around belonging. Is we have seen so many people joining in B1G1 because someone said, "Oh, I'm in B1G1. You should be in B1G1." So what we're doing is, how should I say it? Not automating that. That's the wrong word, but systematizing that process so it becomes more universal. And by the way, the most interesting thing that comes up from all of that is that sometimes you've just got to get out of the way, right? Sometimes someone said to me the other day, right? Here's a good question, Barry. Someone said, why isn't this business an 8-figure business? Really good question. Really good question. And then the next question was, what does it need to, what steps do you need to take to make it an 8-figure business? And you know what the biggest answer to that is? Get out the way of it. The biggest answer to that is just get out the way and just get other people involved. So together with someone, particularly when you've got this great purpose, you know what the great purpose is going to do? That's going to attract great individuals, right? Yeah. Great individuals who really want to excel. And so you can let them excel and grow themselves as they grow the company. So that's the biggest one that's there. Oh, and there's another one which is kind of based on that. But let's just say this: many people know of BNI, right? That whole sort of getting together thing for breakfast and everything else. And there are some people who realize that there are much better ways of doing that now that we can do it. I don't like the term virtually because I don't like to think of virtual events. No, the events are real. So you can do it online, right? So it's an online event. So that's happening, and it looks like that's going to become international, which will be really, really great as well. So yeah, some interesting things happening.
Yeah, fantastic. And if you're already part of B1G1, just comment, let us know in the chat below.
Yeah.
It's certainly something that we're huge advocates and supporters of, and we've linked the story to many things, guests being on our live streams and podcasts, book sales for sure as well. Paul, I could chat with you forever, and we always have plenty to talk about. If you were to give the 10-year-old version of you some advice, knowing what you know now, what would you say to him?
That's well, you can tell from my thing. That's a really, really interesting question. Because I actually look back at the 10-year-old, and Barry, that question makes me gulp, and I'll tell you why. People say things like, have you ever experienced failure and all of that sort of stuff? And for me, that's never been it. It's always been that there is a learning experience in everything, and I never see it that way. So when you ask me the question, it's almost like, I could have done something better when I was 10, right? But I think if there was anything, it means it's going to be obvious to come back to connection and belonging, isn't it? But that's way too obvious. I think probably the answer is just find a way of not making things about you, but making them about you inspiring the people around you. That's what I think I needed to learn earlier. Right? I'm not sure where the 10-year-old kids get that, but anyway, that would be my answer right now.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing.
That's good. It's good.
So look, we're obviously on a bit of a mission to help.
so beautifully.
We're on a mission to help eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. I think now more than ever, business owners need help. And, the recent times have probably been a wake-up call for a lot of business owners too, to realize the importance of having the right things in place in business. And I think a big part of it does start with mindset. A big thing for me, I guess, through going through this journey and helping clients is the steps themselves are relatively easy to put in place, the systems and processes and team. It's relatively easy stuff that you can find on YouTube. I think where a lot of people get stuck is the psychology involved in going through those processes. Like the psychology we have and our thought processing and our belief systems running $100,000 business is very different than running $1 million business or a $10 million business. And there is a specific shift that you have to go through as an entrepreneur at each stage of business to be able to create something that's purpose-driven, that's profitable, and that can work without you. And until you get to that stage, you've got a job, right? Which is high risk, especially if you've got employees that rely on you. And so my ask for you guys is that are watching this or tuning in today is please share this interview with Paul. I'm sure there's gold in here for everyone who has watched it. But equally too, I'll drop a link in, start to date with the Freedom Series. We've got some amazing guests coming on board, like Paul, over the next few weeks. And it also will be the first ones to keep you up to date with the pre-launch of the book on the 12th of July. All the bonuses that we're going to share for those that sign up before. And I guess it's really going to help us to fund our mission to help a lot more entrepreneurs worldwide as well. So I would just be so appreciative if you guys can get behind us to help us to get this into the hands of as many business owners as possible. And Paul, I'm so grateful for all you guys do, and know you've just made such a huge impact to the world in so many ways.
Yeah, Barry, thank you. And I would jump at the chance. And I've perhaps unlike many people who've been on this, I've had the opportunity to be in sessions with you and see the way that you get people to do things that before they were there, they just would not have thought it was possible for them to do. And just with that simple mind shift that you talked about. So congratulations on the book. Looking forward to reading it and so on. I'm looking forward to getting back with you again. Thank you so much for having me here. It's been absolutely awesome highlight of my day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And look, thank you for each and every one of you that joined us either live on the replay as well. And look forward to bringing you the next amazing guest later today. Thank you so much for your time, Paul.
Hey, Barry, thank you. Awesome.